Welcome back. What I'm going to share with you right now is the 4 important findings in why some negotiators are just more successful, and not only as individuals, but also as organizations. We have studied more than 35,000 negotiations with obviously a huge amount of people involved and hundreds of both public and private organizations. And what we have clearly identified is that there are 4 findings that isolated give away the reason that some are more successful than others. I'm going to go through these 4 findings, and it's going to be part of your assignments as well to focus on the 4 findings as we go through these 6 weeks. Now, they're very unprioritized, so it's not one of them being more important than the other. But the first one I want to share with you is the lack of strategy. What I often find is that an organization or an individual don't really have a strategy. So when I'm asking them about a strategy, they're just absolutely quiet. And I could be asking you the same. Just stop the video for a second, sit down and think about what is the official strategy in your organization. So if you go back to the organization and you look at the manual for the employees, would there be a page or a chapter covering the strategy, how you should negotiate on behalf of your organization? If you do, wonderful, congratulations. If you don't, you need one. It's very, very clear to me that those organizations who doesn't have a clear strategy are doing way worse than those who have defined the strategy. And later on during this program, we're definitely going to talk about what is the choice of a strategy, how should we choose it, and how should you utilize that one. About 6 or 7 years ago, one morning I woke up and I had a weird stomach sensation that morning because I felt that trust in the Western world had dropped. I felt that you and I trusted each other less than ever before. I felt that individuals and organizations had lower trust than ever before. And I felt that organizations working together had lower trust than ever before. My stomach sensation was actually so strong, so I felt I needed to write a book about this topic. But you know what? You just can't write a book based on your stomach sensation because that's very subjective, isn't it? So I teamed up with World Economic Forum. They went out and they did a study among 20,000 people in 15 different countries. And they actually came back and said, you know what? Unfortunately, your stomach sensation was right. Trust has dropped in the Western world. It has dropped with more than 40% in the last 10 years, and it's dropped with more than 55% in the last 20 years. Some of you might be sitting thinking, and so what? Is that really crucial? Yes, it is. Because listen very carefully. If we have a very high level of trust in any kind of business relationship, our transactional cost will go down and the profit for everybody will go up. If we have a very low level of trust, our transactional cost will go up and our profit will go down. So that means we can actually equal high level of trust with financial success. The more trust we are able to create in any kind of negotiation, the more successful the parties involved will be financially. So that's why we're going to talk a lot about trust during these weeks we are together as well. The third items we need is rules of the game. And have you ever wondered that United Nations in New York has never ever defined an international approach on how to negotiate? There isn't one. So that means approaching a negotiation could be perceived as different as one party is trying to play chess and the other party is trying to play tennis. Could you imagine that, by the way? You have 2 negotiators sitting there. One is sitting with the racket ready to play tennis, and the other one is sitting with all the pieces to the chess game and ready to play chess. That is going to be a really difficult game. And that's the way negotiations sometimes turns out. It's going to be a really difficult game because the negotiators are playing different games. Now I'm saying something that may sound a little bit awkward, but before you start negotiating with a counterpart, you have to negotiate on how to negotiate. I'm sharing this with my clients as well. We need to have a separate negotiation on how to negotiate, or we need to spend a little bit of the beginning of a negotiation negotiating on how to negotiate. So I'm getting back to that and share that with you as well. And the last of the 4 really important findings is this one, and that is the concept of necroeconomics. And we're going to have separate training on that. But necroeconomics is basically a mathematical model I have created that proves and shows that in most negotiations, an unutilized potential of up to 42% of all the values is not being taken or used by any of the involved parties. So what I'm claiming is that two or more parties could be sitting in a negotiating, in this real life negotiation. They might be able to agree on this actual negotiation. They might even be very happy about the outcome. So they might be leaving the conference room. And what I'm claiming is that these parties actually left up to 42% of the potential values in this conference room without utilizing it, capitalizing it, or even seeing it's there. So we're getting back to, obviously, how do we utilize, find, and capitalize this concept of necroeconomics. How many of you at any point in your life has been reading in the Bible? Some of you might be thinking, well, I'm not Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hindu, or I'm a Jew, so the Bible doesn't really apply to me. But listen anyway, because in the Bible there's something called the Golden Rule. And those of you who might be reading the Bible might recognize the Golden Rule, and if you don't, let me just phrase it for you very quickly. The Golden Rule says something like this: only do to others what you would like others to do to you. Could you imagine we approach negotiation that way? Could you imagine that you only stepped into negotiation and demanded and requested and wished something for the counterpart that you would be absolutely okay with, that the counterpart was asking you? What is really funny is that we have identified throughout more than 15 years of work that those who consciously or subconsciously are using the Golden Rule are financially more successful than those who don't. Isn't that funny? Negotiators who step into negotiation only request something, demand something, and want something that they would be absolutely okay with that the counterpart was asking from them are more successful than the ones who are doing the opposite. Now, if you're not a Christian, or if you just don't believe in religion in general, you might be sitting there thinking, well, that's not relevant for me. But it is. Because I have met so many people who came to me and said, the Golden Rule doesn't apply to me, either because I'm not religious or because I believe in a different religion. So 2.5 years ago, I was sitting down and I was looking at the 13 biggest religions in the world. And what I could actually identify is that all of the world's major religions share the same phrase. They might formulate it a little bit different, but the core content is exactly the same. Only do to others what you would like others to do to you. When I identified that, I got a renewed faith in the future for human beings, because obviously it seems that regardless what kind of religion we believe in, we basically in our papers find the same value with the same purpose: only do to others what you would like others to do to you. Think about that as you proceed, and think about that when you negotiate.